Hello everyone, this is Computer Experiments and welcome back to my channel. So today's video is divided into mainly three parts. In the first part, we'll be talking about virtual machine and dual boot. The second part will be of installing Kali Linux on your system drive or on an external hard drive. And the third part will be of installing Grub bootloader of that particular Linux operating system on a USB thumb drive instead of your system drive itself. So let's get started. So for the first part, we'll see the differences between dual boot and virtual machines. But if you're not interested in this part and you want to see the installation part only, then you can skip this part and go to this time and then watch the video from this point. So now let's continue with the video. So first we will talk about virtual machines. So in much of my previous videos, I have shown how to install virtual machines. So in virtual machines, you might think that we have to just do some setup at the beginning, then we have to start the installation, then we minimize the window, the installation will continue, and we can do any other work on our system. Yes, that is an advantage, and you can also do like use two operating system at the same time. Like here I have Windows, and if I have set another of Ubuntu, let's say, then I can use two operating systems at the same time if I want to. But there are also some disadvantages. Like if you install a virtual machine and side by side you also use your main operating system, the problem will be caused is that the system resources will be shared between the two. So neither one of them will be fast enough. Like if you are running any process on the virtual machine, then the main operating system will go slow. And if you are doing anything on the main operating system, then the virtual machine will also slow down. Basically, everything gets a little slower than it was before. Now, in case of dual boot, that is, if you restart your main system and enter into another system, the advantage is that the resources do not get shared. Any one system at the time will be used, so the resources can be fully utilized, and so there will not be any slowdowns or anything. But the disadvantage is that you cannot use two operating systems at the same time, which might be useful for some people if they have such requirements. If you have enough resources, like in my case, I have only 8 GB of RAM and I have 8 CPUs, so that is enough. I can give 4, that is not a problem. But in case of RAM, I have 8 GB RAM, that is not enough. If I give 4 GB RAM to a system, that will be slower. But if I have at least 16 GB of RAM, then the advantage is that I can give 8 GB RAM. Another 8 GB RAM I'll be using for that system, that is enough actually. More is not required. That is enough for normal functioning of any system. In those cases, if you are willing, you can set up the virtual machine. That will be a good option. If you require to work on two systems at the same time, then it is a good option. Now let's come to dual boot. Now in dual boots, you restart the system and then enter into a different platform or a different operating system. So in that case, what happens that the resources do not get shared between any two systems, and therefore the resources are fully utilized by one system, and hence the system doesn't get slow. But the disadvantage is the same, that you cannot use two operating systems at the same time, which whoever has the same requirement might face a problem with this. Let's say I have Windows and Ubuntu as dual boot. So if I go to Ubuntu, then if I have any work on Windows, then I have to again restart, save all the work, and then go into Windows. And if I again have to move into Ubuntu, I have to save all the work and then restart and then go into Ubuntu. And some applications are supported by one operating system while the others are not. These problems might be caused. According to a requirement, you can set up whichever you want. If you have enough resources and you can install a virtual machine, then it is good. But you don't have the resources, then I recommend to use dual boot. In my case, I prefer using dual boot only, because in virtual machines the resources get a lot lower. Here I am using Windows 11, so this is just the leaked version, but the resource utilization of Windows 11 or Windows 10 is not that different. So likewise, if you are using Windows 10 right now, so 4 GB RAM is just okay. It is not enough, but it is okay. But 8 GB RAM, it is enough for any normal use. But if you set a virtual machine, then the system resources get shared, and hence dual boot is the better option in such cases. So that's all. Now let's go to the second part, that is installing Kali Linux on our system drive or an external hard drive. So for this, we'll be requiring a USB thumb drive of minimum 8 GB space. and we will be requiring the Kali Linux ISO file. So for that we open our web browser and then we type in Kali Linux. Here we go to the site, this is kali.org, and then we click on this download button here. Now here we scroll down a little bit, and in this installer one you click on this download button and it will download the ISO file. And the third thing we'll be requiring is the Rufus software. So we open another tab and then type in Rufus. Then we go to this rufus.ie site, and here also we scroll down a little bit. Here you have to download from the first link, this is the latest release. So I have downloaded both the ISO file and the Rufus software, and I have also downloaded this file, this is grub2_windows.zip. We'll be requiring this file in the third part, so we don't have to do anything with this now. So now first we have to create the Kali Linux installer. So we plug in our USB thumb drive. Here you can see that I have the USB thumb drive of 32 GB, and this is the external hard drive on which we will be installing Kali Linux operating system. Here you have to keep the backup of the files that you have in this USB drive or the external hard drives, because we will be formatting the whole drive. So you have to keep a backup of them. So now we close this file explorer. Now we open our Rufus application. Here we select our USB flash drive, and here we have to select the ISO file, so we click on select, and then we navigate to the ISO file that we just downloaded. After that is done, we click on start. Here it is showing the warning that some files will be downloaded which are required to flash the ISO image to the USB drive. So here we click on yes. And here please make sure that it is selected as write in DD image mode, not in ISO image mode. And then we click on OK. And here it is again giving the warning that all data will be erased. So like I told you before, you have to keep a backup of all the files that you have. After that we click on OK. Now it has begun writing the ISO file. So this will take some time, so you have to wait for it to finish. So here it is showing ready. Now the USB installer has been created, so we click on close. Now we have to create an unallocated partition on which our operating system will be installed. So for this we'll be opening disk management. So you can open disk management in mainly three ways. The first method is that you go to your file explorer and then on this PC you right click and then you go to manage. And here you go to disk management. Now this is the disk management window, you can use it from here, or you can open disk management by going to search and then type in disk management. Now here it will be labeled as create and format hard disk partitions. Now this is also the disk management window, you can use it from here, or you can open disk management by right clicking on the start icon and then going to disk management. Now here we have to create an unallocated partition on which our operating system will be stored. So you open our file explorer. So here I will show you how to install on an external hard drive, but for those who will be installing it in the system itself. So here I have 3 drives, that is drive C on which the operating system is installed, and 2 data drives D and E. So I have more space in this E drive than on other. So I will be creating the partition from this E drive only. You can choose from whichever drive you want. So I will close the file explorer. Now in the disk management window, in the others E drive, we right click and then we click on shrink volume. So here we have to give the space in MB that we want to unallocate. So I will give it 100 GB, you can give it whatever amount you want. Here also please remember that 1 GB is 1024 MB, not 1000 MB. So 1 GB will be 102400 MB. So after we put the value, we click on shrink. So now you can see that a 100 GB unallocated partition has been created. And now I scroll down. Here you can see this is the external hard drive of mine. So if you want to install the operating system on the external hard drive, you don't have to create any unallocated partition. You have to keep it as it is. You just have to keep the backup of all the files that is with the hard drive. So now we close the disk management window. So after all that is done, one thing we have to keep in mind that the USB drives, that is the USB thumb drive, or if you are using the hard drive, so then the USB thumb drive and the hard drive are inserted properly, and we have to keep it inserted throughout the installation process. So now we have to reboot the system. So let's go to the camera. So now let's reboot the system. So now when it is starting, you have to keep on spamming the boot menu key. Mine is an Asus laptop, so in my case it is the escape key. I have given a list of some boot menu keys in the description. You can check it from there. Here my USB drive is the UEFI Kingston Data Traveler. Here we use the up and down arrow keys to navigate. So I will select my USB drive and then hit enter. Here we select graphical install and then hit enter. So if you are using a laptop like me, you will see that the trackpad will not be working. So we'll be using a USB mouse. So here I have a wireless USB mouse of Dell. So I'll be attaching the USB dongle to my laptop. And now you can see that the cursor is moving. It is not necessary to have a wireless mouse only. You can use a wired mouse also, but it has to be a USB mouse. So this is the setup. Here you have to choose the language. I am selecting English. You can select whichever language you want. And we click on continue. Here we have to select the country. I live in India, so I will select India. You can select whichever country you live in. And then we click on continue. Here we have to select the keyboard layout. I will select American English. You can select whichever keyboard layout you want, and then we'll click on continue. Here you might get this kind of error that a file is missing in detect network hardware. So here don't get worried, you just select yes and then you hit enter. So now you can see that the error is not coming, and here we have to select our Wi-Fi network. So I will select the Wi-Fi and then we click on continue. Here you have to select the security option. Nowadays most Wi-Fi routers are having WPA/WPA2 PSK security. So we will select this and we click on continue. Here you have to put the Wi-Fi password and then we click on continue. Here we have to provide the host name for the network, keep it as it is and then click on continue. Here if you have a network domain name you can type it in. I will just leave this empty and will click on continue. Here you have to give the username. And then we click on continue. Here you have to give the username for the account. Here I will remain it as it is. You can give whichever you want. You can change this. And then we click on continue. Here you have to type the password that you want to set for your virtual machine. I will type in the password. And we have to type it again to confirm it. And then we click on continue. So here in partition disks, we will select manual and then we'll click on continue. Now you scroll down a little bit, and for those who are installing the operating system on the main system only, here you can see the free space which we just created. We select this one and then we click on continue. Then we select create a new partition and then we click continue. Here we have to create two partitions. One is a swap partition and another is a root partition. Now in my previous video of installing Ubuntu as a dual boot, I have given a note that we do not create a third partition, that is home partition. The reason is because some applications like Android Studio or you want to install Windows application via Wine and many other applications, they get installed on the home folder. And our files which we want to store can be stored in the home folder only, and we cannot store it in the root system. So if we make three partitions, being a root partition, home partition and a swap partition, the home partition gets used because these softwares are a little heavy, so the space in them gets used and we do not have any space to store our files. But if we create a single partition of root, there is a separate directory of home, then we can store our files and also the space from only one drive will be used. Here first we create the swap partition of 4 GB. So you don't have to type this in MB, so you just type 4 and then in capital letters GB and then we click on continue. Here we select beginning and then continue. Now here in use as, we select swap area and then we click on continue. Here we select done setting up the partition and then continue. And here the rest of the storage which is left, we select this and then we click on continue. Here we select create a new partition and then continue. Here we select the rest of the storage which is left and then continue. Here in users it has to be selected ext4 journaling file system, and in mount point we have to select root. The root is the /. Here you can see if you go into that, the root file system. So after this is done, we select done setting up the partition and then continue. Now this is for the one who want to store the operating system in the system drive itself. So the next thing I will show is to how to install this on the external hard drive. So for this I will first delete these partitions, because please remember that if you create a partition here and a partition in the external hard drive and you are thinking that the operating system will be installed in both of them, it will not happen, because it is default set of installing the operating system on one drive. So it will have conflicts and ultimately your system might get into problems. So do not fall in the risk of doing that. I do not recommend that. But if you have created this partition mistakenly and you want to install it on the hard drive, or if you have created the partition mistakenly on the hard drive and you want to install it in your system drive, then you first erase the partition and please do not leave it as it is. So now let's continue. We will select any one of the partition and then we click on continue, and then we select delete the partition and then we click continue, and then we go to the second partition and we click on continue. Here we again select delete the partition and then continue. After this is done, you can see that it is as whole showing free space. Now let's see how to create the partition on the external hard drive. So earlier we didn't create a free space. So if you want to install the operating system on a part of the drive, then you have to create an allocated partition in the disk management window. But if you want to use the entire disk, we will go forward from here. We select this whole drive and then we click on continue. So here this warning will come that the whole device will be converted to a new partition table. So here we click on yes and then we click on continue. After that is done, we click on the free space and then we click on continue. Here we select create a new partition and then continue. Here again we give 4 GB space for the swap area as 4 GB and then we click on continue. We select beginning and then continue. Here in use as, we select swap area and then continue, and then we select done setting up the partition and then continue, and then we select rest of the space left and then continue. We select create a new partition, then continue. Then we select the rest of the space available, then continue. Here also we select exe4 journaling file system and the mount point as root. Then we select done setting up the partition and then continue. The installation part on both, that is on an external hard drive or in the system drive, the installation part is totally the same. Just the bootloader part is a little different, which I will show in the third part. Those who want to install in the external hard drive do this process, and those who want to install it in the system drive do the earlier one. Then we select finish partitioning and write changes to disk and then continue. Here it is showing the warning that the changes will be done to the disk. If you want to continue, we select yes and then continue. So now the installation has started. This will take some time, so you have to wait for it to complete. So here you have to select the desktop environment for the operating system. So we have three options here: the XFCE, GNOME and KDE Plasma. The XFCE environment looks like this, the GNOME one looks like this, and the KDE Plasma looks like this. So you can choose whichever desktop environment you want. I will select the KDE Plasma. After this is done, we click on continue. So now it is showing installation complete. So the installation has been completed. Now we click on continue. The system will now reboot. And will directly go into the grub bootloader. Here we select the first option, that is Kali GNU Linux, and then we click on enter. So here you have to give the password and then hit enter. So here you have Kali Linux installed as dual boot on your system. Now here we have to change one thing, that is the boot sequence. That is because during the installation, the Kali Linux bootloader or the grub bootloader has been set as primary instead of Windows or the primary operating system that we have. So if you want to keep this one as primary, no problem, you can leave it as it is. But if you want to keep Windows as primary, then we have to go to the BIOS settings and then you have to change it from there. So let's reboot the system now. Now here again, when it starts, you keep on spamming the escape key or the boot menu key. Now here we use the arrow keys to navigate and then we go to enter setup. Now in other laptops it might be written as enter BIOS or BIOS setup or just BIOS settings likewise, or it is also written as setup, or like here that is enter setup. So we will select this option and then we click on enter. Now here we have to use the arrow keys only. So we use the left and right arrow keys to navigate throughout the top bar. So we will go to boot. Here you can see that the first boot preference has been set to Kali. So if you want to use Kali Linux as primary, you can keep it as it is. But if you want to use Windows, we select this boot option 1 and then we hit enter. Here we select Windows Boot Manager and then enter. Here you can see that Windows Boot Manager is set as primary and Kali as secondary. So after that is done, we go to save and exit and then we select save changes and exit and then enter. Then we select yes and enter. Now here this time I am not spamming the boot menu key. You will see that it directly boots into Windows. So here you can see that it is booting directly into Windows. Now I will log into Windows. I will type in the password. Now we are logged into Windows now. So now we are in the third part of the video where we will be seeing how to change the Kali bootloader or the grub bootloader that we saw in the BIOS settings, instead keeping it in the system drive, to a USB thumb drive. Now the third part is not required for those who have installed the operating system in their system drive only. So they can skip this part and end the video, because further we will just see how to install the bootloader on a USB drive instead of keeping it in your system. So let's continue with the video. So now for those who have installed the operating system on the external hard drive, here you cannot carry this hard drive everywhere, right? Plugged into a laptop all the time. So if you are using desktop, that is not a problem. But if you are using laptop, that will create a problem because you have to carry it everywhere. But if you take out this external drive from the USB port, you might receive a grub error because you have removed the main operating system from there. So in many cases it doesn't happen, but in some cases it does happen. So to check that whether it is happening or not, I will first open my file explorer. Now you can see that I have my USB installer and the hard drive. Now you might be wondering that in spite of converting it into ext4 journaling file system, which is not compatible with Windows, it is being read by Windows Explorer. So it is not being default read. Actually, I have a software that is Paragon Linux file system reader, which will be requiring sooner. So we don't require the USB installer anymore. So I will just remove it. Now I will also unplug this USB hard disk of mine. But for those who do not have this software, they can close the file explorer and then they can go to disk management. Here we scroll down. Here this is my hard disk. Now this does not require any software. Disk management does not require any other software to work. So if you don't have the software as mine, it will still work. So I will just plug out the hard disk. Now you can see that the label is no more. Now we close the disk management window and we restart the system. So you can see that I did not get any error like last time, because previously when I was trying to install, I got the error. So this time I did not get it. But for those who do get the error, please don't get worried. Just plug in your hard disk again and then reboot it. It will boot again safely. You don't have to worry. Now after booting into Windows, we will plug our USB drive back in. And we will also plug in another USB drive, which is not the installer one, which has a space of at least 2 GB, because 1 GB pen drive doesn't exist, and this will require hardly 500 MB of space, or not even that much. It is of 8 GB. You can see this. You can see. Now here I have mentioned earlier that there is a file named grub2_windows.zip, and I forgot to mention that I have given another file. This is grub2windows command.txt. So first we extract this zip folder. Here we copy this extracted folder. Then we open our file explorer. Then we go to our C drive, that is the system drive, and here we paste the folder. Now we go into this folder and here we run this grub install.exe file. Here it will ask for administrative permissions. We click on yes. Now grub has been installed. So we go back to our C folder and then we select this folder, and now we hold down the shift key and right click on this folder. Now you will see an option named as copy as path. We select this and now we minimize the window. Now we go to search and then we type in cmd or command prompt, and then we click on run as administrator. And here we type in cd/d, and now we paste the path of the folder and then we hit enter. Now here first we open the file explorer. Here we select the USB drive and then we right click on it and then we click on format. Here in file system we select FAT32 and then we click on start. Here all data will be erased during the format, so you have to keep a backup of the data. Here we click on OK and then close. After this is done, we have to note the drive letter. In my case, it is I. Your case might be different, so you have to note down the drive letter or you have to remember this. Now we close this window and now we open the text file that I mentioned earlier. And here one command is for 64-bit and the other is for 32-bit. Here there are two sections with named drive letter with inverted commas. So we have to delete these two sections and then type in the drive letter. In my case it is I, and in the other one also. And now we have to copy the command from EFI to grub install.exe. Now we copy it and now we paste the command and then we hit enter. Now here you must get this output, that is installing, and then installation finished, no error reported. That means no error has been encountered. Please follow these steps. Now after this is done, we close the command prompt and now we go to our web browser. Now we type in Paragon Linux file systems for Windows. And now we go to the first site, that is paragonsoftware.com, Linux file systems for Windows. And from here you can download the free version or you can also buy it. So I have already installed it. And now we will open our file explorer. So that was the reason that Windows was able to read the ext4 file system drive in my case. So we go into this disk. Please note that this will work for any Linux operating system. I mean anyone. It might be Linux Mint, Ubuntu, Kali Linux or any other Linux operating system. These three I know only. Many other operating systems of Linux are there. So it will work for every one of them. And now we go to this folder named boot and then to the folder named grub. Here there is a file named grub.cfg. We copy this file. Now we close this file explorer. We open another file explorer. Then we go to this USB drive on which we installed grub. And inside this grub folder, we paste the grub.cfg file. After this is done, we close the file explorer and we close all the windows. Now again we go to search and then we type in command prompt. Now again we run it as administrator and then we type in disk part. Now here we type in list disk. Here the system drive, that is on which the operating system is installed. Here this is this one, that is of 237 GB one. So this is the drive, this is disk 1. So I will type in SEL for select disk disk 1 and then enter. And then we type in list part. Part is for partition. And then we select the partition which is labeled as system. So we select SEL PART 1. Your case it might be different. In my case it is partition 1. And then we hit enter. And then we type in assign letter equals X. And then we hit enter. And now we open another command prompt window, that is also as administrator. And then we type in X, then colon. And now we type in CDEFI. And then we type in DIR. Here you can see that one folder, that is Kali, is there. So we have to remove this folder. So we type in RMDIRKALI/S and then we hit enter. Here it is asking, are you sure to continue? So we select Y and then enter. Now you again type in DIR You can see that it is not there anymore, so it has been removed. Now we close this command prompt window, and then in the first command prompt window which we used for disk part, we type in remove letter equals X, and then we close this command prompt window. So now the USB device on which you installed Grub will be acting as the bootloader. So now I have both the USB and the hard disk inserted. So I will first just take out the USB drive. You can see it is not there. Now I will reboot the system. And now we again keep on spamming the boot menu key. And then we go to enter setup. And here we go to boot. And then we go to delete boot option. Then we again hit enter. And then we select the Kali boot option. And then we hit enter. Here we select OK. Then we hit the escape key. And then we go to save and exit. Then we select save and exit, and then enter, and then we select yes, and then again enter. Now again we keep on spamming the boot menu key. Here you can see that the Kali boot menu is not seen anymore. So to reboot the system, I will go to enter setup, and now I will insert my USB drive. And then again just to reboot, it will not show up right now, and we go to save and exit, and then enter, and then enter again. Again we keep on spamming the escape key. Now you can see that the USB drive is shown. This is SanDisk cursor blade, and then we hit enter. Here you can see that the same type of boot menu is showing. Now we go to Kali GNU Linux. Now it will boot into the Kali Linux operating system. Now since we have deleted the boot menu from the system drive, and also you have installed it to the USB drive, those who are having errors, you don't have to keep it plugged in. You can plug the hard disk out, and then when required you plug the hard disk in along with the USB drive, and then you boot into the Kali Linux operating system or any other Linux operating system that you have. Here again I will put the password, and we hit enter. So this is the Kali Linux operating system. Now here you can see that my trackpad is also working. Now we go to File Explorer, and then in this panel in removable devices you can see that I have the USB drive which has the bootloader still plugged in, but you need not need to keep it plugged in, so I will just plug it out. You can see it is no more, but the operating system is there. So this is just the bootloader. If you plug it out, it doesn't matter at all. So that's it everyone. We have seen the differences between dual boot and virtual machines. We have seen how to install Kali Linux, and we have also seen how to delete the bootloader from your original system and install it to a USB drive. So thank you everyone. Thanks for watching this video. If you do like this video, please don't forget to hit the like button. Please do share and subscribe to my channel, and don't forget to ring the notification bell so you get updates on my latest videos.